What if you could map out the exact week a province's public health system metaphorically catches on fire, while at the very same time, its executive government is quietly throwing a highly successful party?
I mean, it sounds like an impossible contradiction. You would think a crisis in one sector would automatically, drag down the other.
You really would think so. But today, we are going to look at a system that maps out exactly that kind of intense compartmentalization.
Yeah, it's a fascinating layout.
Welcome to the deep dive. Grab your coffee and settle in, because we are looking at a real, working, mundane geomantic chart cast for the province of Quebec, the week we are analyzing, the week of July 27, 2026.
And just to establish the timeline for you listening, this chart was cast manually on July 23rd, so that gives us a few days of lead time to decode the patterns before the week officially opens.
Right, and when we say this is a mundane chart, we should probably clarify what that actually means. We aren't reading for an individual's love life or, their career prospect.
No, definitely not.
Mundane comes from the Latin mundus, meaning the world. So Quebec itself is our querent today. We are reading the collective political, economic, and social reality of an entire province.
Precisely. We are treating the province as a living, breathing entity. And to do this, we're using a very specific framework. We anchor our interpretation of the 12 sectors, or houses, of the province using Deborah Holding's mundane house meanings. But to get the full picture, we will also overlay a traditional Astro-geomantic system. It's often credited to Gerard of Cremona, though historically it is properly linked to Gerard of Sabbioneta.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if you are listening to this and wondering how a chart cast on a Thursday can map out a province's political reality for the following Monday, we need to talk about how this map is actually drawn.
Right, the methodology.
Yeah, we aren't just pulling these symbols out of thin air, are we?
Not at all. Geomancy is fundamentally a mathematical art. The word translates to earth divination, but historically it was like the spreadsheet software of the Renaissance.
I love that comparison.
It really was. You generate a chart by making rows of random dots, traditionally in sand or dirt, but today on paper, and you count them, odd or even. Those binary outcomes, single or double dots, generate 16 core figures.
Okay.
From those initial random inputs, the rest of the chart is entirely derived through fixed mathematical addition. It is a closed algorithmic loop.
It's basically a cosmic binary code. And looking at the overarching shield, which is what we call the layout of these 16 figures, the code for Quebec this week is wild.
It really is.
Before we even zoom in on the specific sectors, what is your initial reaction to the big picture?
My immediate reaction is that this is absolutely a chart of threshold and passage.
Yeah.
It is a chart of extreme motion. There's almost no consolidation here. Nobody in the province of Quebec is sitting still this week.
That jumps right off the page.
Yeah.
Just look at the mathematical repetitions. We have Letitia, which is the Latin figure for joy or gladness, appearing 3 separate times. A triple Letitia.
And it lands in 3 wildly different sectors. House 3, which is media and communications. House 10, the executive government. And House 12, the hidden sector of hospitals and secrets.
Wow.
The most exuberant, expansive figure in the entire system is operating in 3 completely distinct areas.
But wait, right alongside all that joy, the math gives us a double albus. Albus translates to white, representing calm, deliberate, cool-headed intelligence.
Yes.
And then, as if to completely throw a wrench into everything, a double rubeus. Rubeus meaning red, literally the most volatile, dangerous, inflamed, explosive figure you can get.
We also have to look at the judge. In geomancy, the judge is the final calculated figure at the bottom of the shield. It acts as the ultimate verdict for the week.
Right.
The judge here is via, which translates to the way or the road. It represents pure, unadulterated movement.
So how did all this extreme joy, extreme calm, and extreme danger end up in the exact same chart? I mean, does the mathematical system naturally design these stark contrasts? Or is this an anomaly unique to Quebec this week? It feels like the province is facing a collective split personality.
What's fascinating here is that the math doesn't always produce this kind of contrast. You can easily have charts that are entirely sluggish or entirely moderate.
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely. But the binary derivation for this specific week produced highly polarized figures. It isn't a split personality, though. It is a map of intense compartmentalization. It shows us precisely which sectors are thriving with joy and which are practically burning to the ground.
To understand where that joy and that danger actually live, let's stop topic walking and actually follow the narrative of this chart. Let's start with the face Quebec is showing the world, and who is running the show.
That takes us to House 1, representing the province's core identity and the general public mood, and House 10, representing the executive government or the premier.
House 1 is held by Albus. That cool, calm intelligence. So the province enters the week with a measured, deliberate posture. There is no panic on the streets. The public mood is rational.
Exactly. And looking up at House 10, the government, we have that first Letitia, genuine joy and expansion. The party in power has real popularity and momentum this week, but we have to look at the elemental nature of Letitia. It is a mobile figure.
Okay, I want to challenge that slightly. How can popularity be mobile or fleeting in a chart? Doesn't joy just mean things are going well for the premier?
That is a great question. In geomancy, every figure is either stable, meaning it traps energy and locks it down, or mobile, meaning energy flows rapidly through it and exits.
Oh, I see.
So Letitia is expansive and exiting. It means the premier has a window of intense goodwill, a real spike in popularity, but it is not locked into place. If they do not capitalize on that momentum immediately, it will evaporate and move on.
Got it. Okay, before we talk about who might threaten that fleeting popularity, let's make one thing crystal clear for you listening. When we discuss the premier, the government, political opponents, or any labor unions today, we are reading the reflections of this chart completely impartially.
Yes, very important to state.
We do not have a horse in the political race. We are simply reading the weather instruments of the geomantic shield.
A vital disclaimer. We are just analysts reading the telemetry, nothing more.
So, if the government has this massive but fleeting joy, and the public is remaining completely calm, who is forcing them to act? That brings us to House 7, the House of Open Opponents, Adversaries, and Negotiations.
House 7 holds Fortuna Minor, the lesser fortune. This indicates that whoever Quebec is negotiating against or fighting with this week holds a temporary advantage.
Okay.
It is a tactical win for the opponents. But, just like the government's joy, lesser fortune is a highly mobile figure. It requires the opponents to press their advantage actively before their luck runs out.
And this is where we need to introduce one of the most fascinating diagnostic tools in geomancy, the Way of Points. Can you explain how this works before we apply it to the opponents?
Absolutely. The Way of Points is basically a mathematical tracer die injected into the chart.
Love that visual.
Because every figure is derived from the ones above it, you can trace any figure's literal lineage back to its root. You follow the dominant lines, the single or double dots, upward through the shield to see where a situation actually originated. It tells you the invisible root cause of a visible symptom.
And when you trace the Way of Points back to its root in this Quebec chart, it terminates exactly in House 7 with the opponents.
Yes, that is a massive structural insight. It means that whatever internal fires Quebec is putting out this week, the lever is being pulled from the outside.
Wow.
The domestic friction is a symptom. The external relationship, whether that is negotiating partners, the federal government in Ottawa, or trade opponents, is the true root cause.
Okay, so to really understand these opponents, we have to look deeper than just the geomantic bones. We need the nervous system. This is where we apply the Gerard of Sabbioneta overlay.
Think of the geomantic figures as the raw architectural structure of the week. The Gerard overlay takes traditional astrological concepts, zodiac signs, and planets, and drapes them over the houses. This tells us how the actors will behave. Are they operating from a place of strength, or are they injured?
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's apply that overlay to House 7. The math gives us the zodiac sign of Cancer. In this system, Mars in Cancer is in its fall, and it's accompanied by Caput Draconis, which translates to the dragon's head.
This completely changes how we view the opponents. When a planet is in its fall, it means it is operating in an environment completely contrary to its nature. It's like a sprinter trying to run a race in a swamp.
Right.
Mars is the planet of war and aggression. In fall, that aggression becomes reactive, defensive, and brittle.
But it'll also have the dragon's head, which acts like an amplifier. It tunes the volume up to 11 on whatever it touches.
Precisely. So combining this, the opponents have temporary luck, and they are making a massive amount of loud, dramatic noise because of the dragon's head. But because their Mars is in fall, their actual ability to wage a sustained battle is weak. They're barking aggressively, but they don't have the bite to back it up.
That is incredibly strategic information for the government. But to fight off even a loud, barking opponent, Quebec needs resources. Which brings us to a terrifying narrative pivot: the financial health of the province this week.
The financial axis is House 2, the Treasury, versus House 8, which governs debt, shared resources, and crisis management.
House 2 holds via the road, which means money is flowing out. The Treasury is acting as a transit corridor, not a vault.
Exactly.
And where is that financial river flowing? Directly into House 8, which holds Rubius, a flashing red alarm of volatility and danger.
The financial outflows are hemorrhaging directly into a highly inflamed crisis sector. Whatever debt or crisis management is happening in Quebec this week, it is hot, volatile, and demanding massive, immediate financial resources.
Let's bring the Gerard overlay back in here, because this is where the data gets seemingly contradictory. In House 2, the Treasury, the overlay gives us Aquarius, which is ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is in domicile here.
Domicile means a planet is at home. It is playing on its own turf with all its own resources. Saturn, in domicile, is the single strongest planetary placement in this entire chart. Saturn represents restriction, discipline, borders, and authoritative ledgers.
Wait, I have to push back on that. How can a strict ledger control a river that is actively flowing out? If via means the money is leaving, isn't a Saturnian ledger just impeccably tracking your own bankruptcy?
That is a brilliant way to frame it, but think of it more like a controlled burn or a strategic deployment of capital. Saturn doesn't stop the flow of via, but it ensures every single outgoing dollar is ruthlessly accounted for.
Oh, I see.
It isn't careless spending. It is a highly disciplined, heavily audited hemorrhage. They are spending exactly what they must to fight the fire in House 8 and not a penny more.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You need discipline when things are burning. But let's talk about where the real fire is in this chart. The most dangerous axis of the week, House 6 and House 12.
House 6 governs the civil service, labor unions, and public health. And sitting right in the middle of it is our second Rubius.
To put this in real-world terms for the listener, Rubius in House 6 doesn't just mean a bad spreadsheet. It means intense physical friction. This translates to restive labor unions threatening strikes, severe friction in the public sector, or a massive, agonizing strain on the hospital and public health systems. It is a heavy, red-hot burden on the working class that maintains the province.
And here is where the chart offers its most profound and difficult paradox. We have to calculate two mathematical points called Arabic parts.
Right. The parts?
The part of spirit, which shows the animating intent or soul of a situation, and the part of fortune, which indicates where physical material rescue lies.
And both the part of spirit and the part of fortune fall exactly into House 6, the house ruled by Rubius.
Yes. Both the animating purpose and material rescue for the province are located inside the fire.
Okay, that makes absolutely no sense. How can the province's animating purpose, A&D, its best chance for material rescue, both sit in the middle of a blazing fire? I mean, the public health system is melting down, labor is furious, and you're saying that's where the rescue is.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it actually makes perfect sense. I am saying the danger is the door.
The danger is the door.
Yes. This isn't about avoiding the fire. It's about the fact that Quebec's best chance for genuine rescue requires walking straight through the friction of its labor and health sector. They cannot bypass the union unrest or the health system strain to find a magical solution elsewhere. The solution, the structural fix that will save the province's momentum, is buried deep inside the conflict itself.
Wow. The crisis is the crucible. To fix the province, they have to engage with the hottest, angriest sector. That is intense. Now, while all this heavy, fiery work is happening, how is the province communicating it?
That brings us to House 3, the media, transit, and public relations sector. We have our second Letitia here. Joyful, expansive, beautiful communications. And the overlay places Venus in exaltation here.
Venus at her absolute peak, which reinforces that joy perfectly. So, despite the massive crisis in labor and health, Quebec's diplomatic and cultural voice is operating with maximum grace and effectiveness. They are delivering terrible news or fighting tough battles, but they are doing it with incredible PR. They can win the public over with words this week.
It creates a fascinating split-screen effect. The hospitals might be strained, but the press conferences are flawless.
We know the overarching themes, we know the actors, and we understand the mechanics of the tension. Now let's read what geomancers call the terminal figures. These 4 figures at the bottom of the chart act as the chronological script. They tell us exactly how the week of July 27 will unfold day by day.
We read these in a specific sequence: the right witness, the left witness, the judge, and finally the reconciler.
So the right witness represents the beginning of the week, the baseline condition. We have acquisitio, which means gain.
So Quebec enters the week holding valuable resources, gathered goodwill, or an advantageous negotiating position. They start Monday on a high note, holding a full hand of cards.
But the left witness, which represents how the week actually develops, is omissio, meaning loss.
As the days pass, those initial gains begin to flow outward. The grip loosens. Whatever was gathered at the start simply cannot be held onto. Resources, whether financial or political, are spent.
Which leads mathematically into the judge, the verdict of the week. As we mentioned earlier, the judge is via the way.
The week does not resolve into a definitive static win or loss. It resolves into pure forward movement. The province is forced into passage. They cannot stay where they are. They have to travel the road.
But a road needs a destination, or at least a vehicle. That brings us to the final derived figure, the reconciler, the concrete settlement of the chart's energy. The math gives us pure, which translates to the boy or the youth.
Pure is a martial figure. It represents a decisive, sharp, bold, almost aggressive cut. After all the gaining, losing, and moving, the week closes with a sudden, forceful action.
I want to try an analogy here to see if I'm grasping the mechanism of this chronological script. It's like Quebec pulls up to an incredibly expensive toll booth that is the emission loss.
Right.
They have to pay a massive fee just to get their car onto the highway, which represents the via movement, and then right at the end of the on-ramp, they suddenly floor the gas pedal and aggressively cut across 3 lanes of traffic to secure their position. That sudden, aggressive maneuver is the pure action.
That is a brilliant translation of the mechanics. You pay the heavy cost to enter the flow, and then you must make a sudden, aggressive, unapologetic maneuver to secure your dominance on the road. In provincial terms, that pure action could look like forcing back-to-work legislation, signing a sudden executive order, or calling an unexpected bluff in negotiations late on Friday.
Okay, pulling this entire deep dive together into one synthesis. The dominant storyline for Quebec this week is entering rich, but leaving emptied and moving.
Exactly. And the only thing that determines whether that emptying out was a purposeful strategic sacrifice or just a miserable, chaotic loss is whether the government has the nerve to execute that bold PR stroke at the very end of the week.
That shifts the perspective entirely.
This raises an important question, though. What exactly must Quebec sacrifice this week?
Well, what do they sacrifice?
They must sacrifice the expectation of keeping. That is the hardest psychological part of the emissio figure. Fighting the outflow will only create more friction. If they try to hoard their initial acquisitio gains, they will stall out and fail. The goal for this week is to secure momentum, to secure via. The goal is not to secure possessions. They are paying for passage.
So what does this all mean? Bringing this down to earth for you listening, what are the practical takeaways for the province of Quebec for the week of July 27?
First, rely heavily on that House 1 Albus patience. Keep a cool head. Use that House 3 Exalted Venus in your communications. Your public relations and diplomacy are your sharpest weapons this week.
Second, do not overreact to your opponents. Yes, they are loud, and yes, they have a temporary tactical advantage. But remember, the overlay their Mars is in fall. Let them exhaust themselves with their own brittle reactive energy. They cannot sustain a long fight.
Third, accept the financial outflow. You are going to spend heavy money or political capital this week, but manage it with that House 2 Saturnian discipline. Keep the ledgers mercilessly strict, even while the river flows.
And finally, be ready for that sudden pure moment at the end of the week. When the time comes to make a decisive cut, do not hesitate.
Pay the toll, get on the road, and take your lane.
Which brings me back to that impossible city map we talked about at the beginning. The river of money, the fire in the labor sector, and the quiet party. We know all about the fire in House 6 now, but I want to leave you with one final provocative thought about that quiet party.
The third Letitia.
Right. We saw Letitia extreme joy hiding in House 12. In mundane astrology and geomancy, House 12 is the sector of secrets, prisons, hidden enemies, and backroom deals. What if, despite all the loud noise from the opponents and all the terrifying financial outflows, the most important structural victory for Quebec this week is a silent, behind-closed-doors resolution that the public never even hears about?
A hidden joy locked in the shadows. That is the true beauty of this chart. The loudest crisis isn't always the most important outcome.
Keep your eyes open this week, but remember, sometimes the biggest shifts happen where you can't even see them. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.